And now, to address the legal concerns of the community, praise AM 1310, 95.1 FM, Legally Speaking. Here are today's hosts.
Good morning, everyone. This is Nathaniel Lee. I'd like to thank you each week for joining our show. We have our exciting cast again today. We have attorney Milton from LA and attorney Vanita from Chicago, originally Indianapolis. And there's so many different topics that are in the news. It's overwhelming in terms of choice, but I just want to talk just a little bit. We're in Black Expo now here in Indiana. It's the country's largest, just phenomenal event. And they did a phenomenal concert last night. I was just really enthused by the level of harmony among the people there. So I'd like to give a big shout out to all the folks, the thousands of people who came last night. Thank you for being good citizens. Thank you for being kind and considerate of your neighbors and your friends. Thank you so much. It was such a wonderful evening. But the other thing, real quickly before we get into the major part, we got two critical issues that took effect July 1st that affect you. One is the amendment to the seatbelt law. So if you're driving a car now, you'd have a seatbelt on. They could use that to reduce your damages. So for example, you had a close head, a brain injury, didn't have your seatbelt, it could reduce your damages by millions of dollars if you did a trial. The second issue, though, that disturbed me is that across the country, there's been an attack, state after state, on diversity issues. The Supreme Court, we talked about earlier this year, they got rid of affirmative action. Affirmative action is a misused term, folks. Affirmative action, when I went to law school, for example, was something that they always used, but it only involved wealthy, white, or politically connected whites. And that was affirmative action. They had affirmative access to prestigious college and university in Georgia. Well, then in the late 70s, they applied to African Americans. So I ended up going to law school, and they're saying that that's no longer acceptable. Well, to make matters worse, there was multiple states that also attacked diversity initiatives. So African Americans are less than 2% of the people in the higher advanced degree, and now they want to decrease that number even more. So for each of you out there, there's a lot at stake in the upcoming election, but one is the economic viability of African Americans. I mean, if you're not able to obtain advanced degrees as a group, you'll see a decline in income over the years. So just keep that in mind. Now, having said that, Attorney Banks, there were so many different legal issues that hit this week. I know there's one that near and dear to you, that is that unusual case out of Idaho, the abortion case. You recall that case?
Your mic is off, Vanita.
Okay.
Good morning. Sorry, I had a problem coming off mute. Good morning, Attorney Lee and Grimes. Yes, in a 6-3 decision where 6 conservative judges agreed with the 3 so-called, if you will, I don't like using the term conservative liberal, but that's what it is. They came together to agree to dismiss an Idaho case, and they held that women who receive the case allows women that receive an emergency abortion to save their life is acceptable despite a statewide ban on abortion. And so for now, temporarily, this decision will offer protection from prosecution for doctors that determine that an abortion is necessary to save the life of the patient. This case only applies in very, very narrow cases and situations Idaho has a near complete ban on abortion in the state. And the statute stated that abortions were only allowed, or emergency medical procedures are only allowed to save the life of the patient. And so this is one of two cases that have been decided now that we're 2 years after Roe versus Wade. The first case decided a few weeks ago stated that the abortion pill mifepristone can still, that women still have access to the abortion pill mifepristone. That was an issue that had been appealed all the way to the Supreme Court. However, the court ruled very narrowly in that case as well, and just basically stated that these plaintiffs, which were a group of conservative doctors, did not have standing to bring that case. So it doesn't definitively decide the issue. That's the mifepristone abortion pill case.
But the bottom line is women don't have a choice to decide what to do with their bodies and whether or not to have an abortion unless some doctor determines that it's life-threatening pregnancy.
Absolutely, which again is unacceptable. And never have we in our lifetimes had a right protected under the Constitution that was taken away. And you're
Well, here's the
right.
difference, though, Milton. In this state, it's a draconian law because, in essence, if a physician is caught doing an abortion that does not meet those narrow exception to the rule, they get up to 5 years in prison and a complete loss of their medical license. So, in a nutshell, they make the physician as though he's doing the equivalent of manslaughter.
All right. So where you have incest, or rape or any other concern of the mother, she does not have a right to have an abortion unless she can show an emergency, life-threatening emergency, right?
Well, no, they say, but okay, incest and rape was an exception, but the problem is, how do you prove that? See, the problem with these cases is that these laws is that it requires a physician all of a sudden to become a detective. So I don't understand how, and as a result of this law, this draconian law, studies shown that they've lost 22% of the physicians who provide primary care to women for reproductive issues like gynecologists and obstetricians. So the net result is these laws impairs not only the viability of the mother's right, but also the physician. Now you have physicians who, if he's wrong about this, could be prosecuted. So I think a lot of people don't realize how bad these laws are. They're terrible for our democracy, and they're bad for women, right? But even so, there's two people involved in this process. There's a man and a woman. And so I think it abrogates the rights of men also. I mean, so if they can't make a decision in terms of how things are done in terms of reproductive freedoms, it seems like we're going close to a communist regime. These laws don't make any sense to me.
Seems like we're going to get back the man who takes responsibility for putting those 3 Supreme Court justices on the court to be in a position to get rid of Roe versus Wade. It looked like he's got a good shot at coming back to do some more of that damage.
Well, based on how the people, at least at this point, and we'll see what happens in the months leading up to the election, perceive the debate on Wednesday evening.
That's why I said that.
Well,
I
I
don't
watched
know.
the debate, and there was some important things that I picked up. Number one, the president, Joe Biden, his delivery process was poor. That's,
Very poor.
But the second thing, though, the person he's debating, I don't know how you deal with this. You deal with a person that don't know the difference between facts and fiction. So he's debating a person who the entire debate never told the truth about anything. It was just shocking to me. He never, I mean, it was crazy. He basically gave himself credit for curing COVID. And that was the idiot to start off by saying that you can cure COVID by injection bleach, not realizing you inject bleach in your system, that'll kill you faster than COVID.
You know, they, when I was, go ahead,
he
Vanita.
also claimed that he was responsible for reducing the prices of insulin. So many lies.
So many lies. You know, when I was growing up, we used to stand on the corner or in the alley and talk smack, and people be guarantee you the Lakers would beat Boston. I guarantee you. I guarantee you. And he reminded me of the guys that you knew were full of bull, but they're guaranteeing something they have no control over. But he guarantees he's going to stop that war. Putin will stop the day that he's elected. Just a bunch of bull throughout his debate. But that was the position he took. And it sounds good, but it's not something that people can back up. But here we go again, y'all. Fighting. I felt sorry for him. I really did. I mean, I don't know how his people even let him do the debate.
Well, that's one of my questions. And as you know, the Democratic team, they push for these debates. And so why would they do that? I would have never given the former president a forum or platform to spread his lies. I would not have done that. I mean, he is a champion in terms of what we saw on Wednesday night. I mean, that's the kind of forum that he likes. I don't know why they gave him that platform, number one. And again, the Democrats push for these debates. Why would you have a debate this early in the process? But as you listen to the debate and you listen to the questions that were asked and the answers that were given, I would say that President Biden won on many of the policy points.
He won on substance.
He won on some of the substance. But you really have to listen carefully. And when you do, he won on substance in terms of a lot of matters. First of all, a woman has a right to make decisions regarding her own body. The substance with respect to the United States economy, our strength in terms of our allies around the world. He won on substance, but I'm just, shocked that
the delivery, Vanita, the delivery was just lacking, and you got to give credit to the effect and the need for good delivery. It's just like packaging a product, and he wasn't packaged correctly. It didn't come across good, and you had to. What did he say? Oh, you got to make out. You're trying to figure out what did he just say, and you can't listen to what he's saying. It was terrible.
Well, here's some important highlights. One of the critical questions they asked both candidates: will you pledge to accept the results of the 2024 election after all legal appeals have been exhausted? Donald Trump was pressed 3 times on whether or not he would commit to accepting the final result of the election, and he never answered. 3 times. He never said that he would accept the result. And we know he's saying to go to prison for not accepting the results of the 2020 election. So we got a guy running for president of the United States. I want you to think about this. Is running for president to avoid going to prison because they say that they can't put a president in prison during his term. This is crazy stuff. A person running for president of the United States to avoid going to state and federal prison. That's a radical departure from democracy. And the second issue that I thought was important, they asked, what do you say to voters who believe that you violated that oath through your action and inaction on January 6th and worry that you'll do it again? And what was his answer? He refused to answer it. He thought that some people, he deflected and started want to talk about January 6th. We had a great body. We had a great border protection. Nobody was coming through the border. In other words, that was an outright lie because they still had people coming into the United States, and he just kind of made up an answer, but he never would answer. And he thought that the people who broke in and tried to kill the vice president and other folks, they were trying to kill folks, and they did. You know, police officers got beaten really badly, a lot of them, hundreds of them, and 1 or 2 died as a result of this traumatic event. And he never answered it. And I thought that was a telltale sign, if anybody was listening to the debate, that you should be disturbed because we're seeing a downfall of American democracy. If a presidential candidate, folks, does not accept the results of election and cast doubts on the election, then that is a third world country ideologue, not the United States of America.
He called the United States a third world country, for example. And you're absolutely right, Attorney Lee, on all of those points. From stating that he would accept the results of the election if it was free and fair election. Same approach, although 60 courts had ruled against him on his false claims that there was a fraud in the election process. President Biden made that point in response, but again, his delivery was poor on Wednesday evening.
That was. And Trump has the ability to repeat your question and then go ahead and say what he wants to say about what he wants to talk about. Because he keeps it going, he keeps talking, and you forget what was the question. What is he talking about? He just slick.
I blame the moderators for that, because when they ask you a question and you say, I'll address that in a minute, and you pivot immediately, which is what he demonstrated during that debate, he should have been cut off.
He should have been.
You do not get to amplify. You don't get to speak about what you want to speak about. You answer the question or you don't respond at all.
He did that half of the whole debate.
The entire debate.
Entire debate. He did. It's shameful that we're putting up with it.
The third thing that was important, the third question I thought was important, they asked the following question. Will you name tonight one specific step that you're willing to take to keep Social Security solvent? Donald Trump responds, he ranted about Russia and Ukraine, and then they talk about the fact that he called our troops suckers and losers back up and again. He was unable to name a single step he'll take to protect Social Security for American seniors. Not a single step.
No policy.
Had no idea from a policy standpoint, and he totally ignored it. And for those seniors out there that relies on that Social Security check, and I think that majority of Americans, when they retire, they rely on that Social Security check, I think is important. You work your whole life, you pay into a system for generation from generation, it's been stable, and we see a deficit now. So we have a guy who's running for president who's attempting to stay out of prison who doesn't have an idea how to protect it. Well, here's how you protect it. Something very simple you have to do. You have to continue to tax people at least 1% after they reach their threshold. So if people make over $400,000 a year or $500,000 a year, you just add on that 1%. Social Security, folks, the people that work, the government takes out a certain percentage, like 7 point some percent, and your employer matches that, right? but it cuts off, I think, this year at about $180,000. To keep it solvent, all you have to do is continue to tax the people that earn more than $400,000 a year at 1%. So 1% of $400,000 is $4,000. So a person making $500,000 a year, that's $5,000. So taking $5,000 we made $500,000 a year is peanuts. But if the government simply did that, the system will be solvent. And I need you to know that. And that's how you fix it. You have to actually, instead of stopping the taxes at 180, you need to continue for people making more than $400,000 a year. And right now,
Biden suggested that we raise it to 8%, right?
No, it's not that. What's on the table, the way you stabilize it is that Social Security cuts off for both the employer and the employee. And I think I don't have the exact table in front of me, but I think it's right around 180,000 this year. When I first started practicing law, it was like 32,000. So over the years, based on inflation and stuff, it's increased up to about 180. And it may not be 180, maybe 178, but it's been going up steadily each year. But the problem with Social Security is that they don't tax anyone once they get past that threshold. They did change the Medicare rule, and Medicare now taxes a certain amount beyond that, right? Medicare take that 1%, out of your paycheck, and you don't really miss it. And they should have done the same thing for Social Security, and they did not. And that would have given them enough revenue to fund the benefits. Now, we have a couple of callers. Let me go to line. Okay, Pierre, you got a question or comment. Also, callers, our phone number is 833-653-3529. You have a question, Pierre?
Yes, can you hear me?
Loud and clear, sir.
Okay. To your point about the debates, I said last week on some other call-in shows, because I like to call in to other shows, there never should have been a debate in the first place, because Joe is at that point where he stands at the podium and sometimes he misses cues and things of this nature. For the life of me, I think it was his people set him up, because why? What is the point? Like I said, I've made up my mind. You two have made up your mind. The white boy down the street, he done made up his mind. What is the point? And if I was President Biden, I'd take control of the whole thing and say, you know what, going forward, there's not going to be any more debates. We're going to go ahead and we're going to do our thing, and we're just going to move forward. And we might do a town hall here and there and take direct questions from a Democratic audience, and we're going to tell our story. But this debate thing should have never happened. It should have never happened. And you guys we're all old enough to remember when Reagan did his debate against, I think it was Mondale, and he did poorly the first time around. And then he came back that second time around and had that zinger about being not making fun of his opponent's youth and all of that. So these older guys, I forget things. And it just never should have happened. And thanks for taking my call. I appreciate it.
Let me just address that. I spent 5.5 hours yesterday with a client preparing her for trial in 2 months. And we talk about posture. We have a person dealing with her posture, setting up in the seat, feet flat, and her mannerisms. But somebody should have worked with Joe about that. He stood there. I can't tell you how many times I saw him with his mouth gap open and just looking hollow, like a mannequin or something. It just was deplorable way he presented himself. I mean, it was, I wanted to say, somebody tell him to close his mouth. It just.
And even his, the cadence of his responses, Jesus. The idea that, how many times did he say that, right? He was prepared for 5 days, I understand, at Camp David. But again, why even propose those debates? I have that question of the team, and I wish someone can get behind the scenes to determine If I was part of that team, he never would have done that debate.
Absolutely.
Why even they proposed these debates?
That didn't make sense.
If I was
Well,
Miss
There
Biden,
never would have been an
I'd
upside.
fire all of them.
Exact. There never would have been an upside to that debate. And I certainly, to your point, I don't know, Pierre, if he's required now to go through with the second one. But guess what? He can do whatever he wants. He can say, hey, we're not debating, this person again because he has no
Absolutely.
integrity. And that's just it. We're just not gonna do
Absolutely.
a second debate.
Right.
He has that authority. Go ahead,
Right.
Peter.
You think Nancy Reagan would have put up with that? She'd have fired the whole staff. And
Yeah.
that's exactly what should happen. Thank you for taking my call.
Okay,
Thank you for
Pierre.
calling.
Okay, let's take the next caller. Caller, you had a question for us today.
Yes, I actually have a comment. I'm calling because I have a different perspective on the debate. I really think that because Trump is such a bully, I don't think that the Biden campaign felt like they could not do a debate with him because it would have made Biden look even weaker. I think they thought also because of how he did at the State of the Union that he would perform well enough at the debate to negate any kind of concerns about his age. But the other thing I'm going to say, too, is that, and that obviously was not a good decision. I mean, we can all look back now in hindsight, but if he had done fantastic, then everybody, or done well, everybody's like, oh, yeah, that was a brilliant move. What I can say, though, is that he was sick. He probably was on medication. And I don't know about being 81 and on medication, but especially cold medication, he was sick. But the man was doing a job as president for the whole time. Trump was sitting back, eating, relaxing, playing golf when he wanted to, doing all the things that he felt like he wanted to do during that particular time and not working a job. So, and the debate was at 9 o'clock. That was ridiculous. So, given all of that, it was not a good setup for Biden. And I guess they thought by cutting off Trump's mic, people would have been able to hear what Biden has to say. But unfortunately, all it did was, because Trump knew that the mic was going to be muted, he decided that he was just going to go in there and say whatever the hell he wanted to say because nobody was going to fact check. And CNN made that clear. So I don't know why people are surprised that CNN didn't do any fact checking. The other thing I say about the campaign, I don't know why they thought that CNN was their friend. CNN is owned by a conservative person now, not Ted, not Ted, who's conservative, but an extreme conservative. And they've changed out a lot of their hosts who are very extreme conservatives. So why would you agree to something with CNN? They should have gone with somebody like MSNBC, NBC, ABC, anybody other than CNN. So those are my points about it. And I'm going to make one last point. The last point I thought about it was that these are echoes. Who I'm mad at is mainstream media, because instead of talking about what Trump did, and he lied from beginning to end, they immediately focused on Biden and threw him off the cliff and talked about getting somebody else in there. Why would you do that for your main candidate? The Republicans stand by Trump no matter what he does, his lunacy. They don't care. They're standing by him. They're lockstep. We should not be throwing our candidates off the cliff for one bad night, one 90-minute bad night.
You agree that debate was a bad thing to do, right?
Well, I can say that now. I mean, because I've seen it.
Well, if you had worked with your candidate for 5 days, you probably should have seen that would be.
Well, no, the problem, I think, with what they did, this is my personal opinion, I think the problem with his prep was they were so busy trying to prep him to get the numbers and stuff down. Nobody cares about Medicare numbers. Nobody cares about Medicaid numbers. What they care about is, you know, he should have been talking about the topics, the passion of the topics, not numbers. Nobody cares about the numbers. When Biden, you know, when Trump was talking about Roe v. Wade, he should have gotten there and talked about, well, women have lost their freedom, you know, and I'm going to be the one to give it back to them. Simple. Just simple statements. Nothing about the statistics of this or the statistics of that. Yes, they prepared him wrong for debating that kind of a man who never tells the truth. He should have been, you're a liar, and this is what I feel for this country. Not
well,
what
what about this?
Say.
Hey, caller, what about this? Here's his opponent. A federal judge said that his opponent, Donald Trump, raped a woman in a department store. A New York judge took away his business license because they say he's a crook. He has been convicted of 34 felonies for election interference. Ironically, campaign finance violation is the same allegation that sent a lawyer, Michael Cohen, to prison. If you look at the two indictments, 4 to 7 of Michael Cohen is Donald Trump. So that was a co-conspirator in Michael Cohen prison sentence. So now you got election interference in Georgia and all these different states, and their candidate will end up in state and federal prison if he doesn't get elected president. And they know that.
Yes,
but they
sir.
stand by a man who is morally corrupt. He is a convicted felon. And in some of these states, he probably can't even vote. You know, Florida is making, the Senate came out and said he'll make sure Donald Trump can vote. But he denied the right to all the African Americans that were trying to get the right to vote. They fought it tooth and nail until it was granted by the Florida voters. So the point I'm making is, why aren't we looking at the opponent? You know, I thought that the pundits were too critical of Biden, but they did not look at the flawed candidate he's debated.
That's correct. And they started looking the day after, but they had already done the damage. They did the work for the MAGAs and the enabling Republicans. They did their work for them. They went out and attacked and destroyed Biden on that night. And I'm thinking, who does that? Who goes out and crucifies their own candidate? Yes, you had a bad debate, but you don't throw him off the cliff. So I agree with everything you're saying. Why I said Biden had a bad prep is because what they should have led with was all the things that you just said. He should have come out the gate swinging and put Trump on defense. Instead, the way it was set up was that it put Biden on defense because nothing he said, Trump said, was going to ever be fact-checked. So instead, Biden should have come out and punched him in the nose immediately. And whatever question they asked him, he should have said, well, you know, I'm going against everything that's coming out Trump's mouth is going to be a lie. And, you know, I'm competing against a 34-count felony convicted criminal and who's been convicted of sexually assaulting a woman who cheated on his wife with a porn star while she was home with her newborn, blah, blah, blah. He should have said all that up front, and that would have threw Trump off his stride. And then people would have stopped focusing on him so much. But he didn't do that because they prepped him with, you got to look presidential, you got to say this, you got to quote your stats, and this and that. You're ridiculous. If it was a normal candidate that he was running against, yes, maybe that would have been better. Not Trump. That's how I think that they did not prepare this man for this debate. That's just my personal opinion.
I agree with you, Renee. I think he should have had like maybe 5 policy points, right? And
exactly.
Every time Trump made a statement, he should have responded with those 5 policy points, whether you're 34 count convicted felon, or as a result of Roe versus Wade, women are dying.
Yes, ma'am.
5 points. You know, we're the strongest nation in the world. We're looked up to. 5 points. And so I'm just, I would just like to understand at some point what the thinking of the team was that prepared the president. You know, in these kinds of situations, it's short and sweet, and it's, you know, just a few points, conciseness.
That's correct. Yeah, I want to know who prepared him too, because as Pierre said, I would fire all of them. they did a poor job. I think it was a young team that thought that they were doing something innovative or whatever by having it in June, and they're very data driven maybe sometimes, and I thought that was ridiculous. But I agree with you. It should have been 5 points, like you said, Attorney Vanita, 5 points, and that's it. And he should have come out the gate swinging with those 5 points, and then Trumpster would have been taken off guard because he would have never expected it.
Excellent points, Renee.
But thank you for taking my call. I really appreciate you guys, and I'm going to continue listening. Thank you.
Wow, those excellent points made. There was additional things that were brought out that was not answered. When one of the questions they asked the candidate, what will you do to lower costs for family? When asked a question about inflation, the economy, and how he would address it, Donald Trump dodged it. Instead, he started complaining that he did not get credit for his response to COVID-19. So Donald Trump, when they asked him, what will you do to lower costs for families? So we're talking about inflation and cost. Now, I think that most people in America, a lot of people, at least 37%, forgot the state of the economy towards the end of Donald Trump's presidency. Let's just rehash it real quickly. In American history, the budget started in 1929. The budget was at zero in 1929. When Donald Trump took office, we were running a $21 trillion deficit. In 4 years, he did $8.2 trillion to the federal deficit. So Donald Trump is 26% of the federal deficit. Now, how did we get that way? Well, he gave this gigantic tax breaks to billionaires and millionaires. And so at the end of his presidency, well, in 2020, we underwent a pandemic. America's had pandemics, dozens of them over the years since the 1800s. Nowhere in American history was a pandemic managed worse than what Donald Trump did. When the pandemic started, he first didn't understand and said that it'd be over with in 6 or 8 weeks. Then he came up with this idiotic idea that you could cure COVID with injection of bleach. You know, any idiot should have told him, Mr. President, you'll die quicker if you inject bleach into your body. The bleach will kill you. But the people around him didn't say anything. So the point I'm making is there was things that he did that was terrible. African-American unemployment was the highest it's been since the 30s under Donald Trump at the end. We had more people dying in America than any time. We had people dying from COVID, thousands of people every day, but we also had secondary causes of death because all the hospitals were full. Every day I woke up, there was people dying with heart attacks and other disease process because the hospital was overfilled with COVID. So all these things happened, and it was the worst managed crisis in American history, yet it seemed like about 40% of people in America suddenly forgot about that, how bad he managed the national economy, how bad he managed the disease process. The relation with our allies was at an all-time low. He chummed up to dictators like Putin and the North Korean dictator. And so he withheld money from Ukraine. He got impeached because he tried to blackmail Ukraine. Everybody forget about that. And then, at insult to injury, they talked about the border crisis. And let's make something real clear, folks, about the border, so you don't fall into the trap again. When you have a border, it requires two components. You have to have manpower to guard the border, like guards. And then you have to have a court system to adjudicate folks that come in who have a legal right. America's a country of immigrants. They had a bipartisan bill that would have solved the problem by allowing folks to come into the country legally and prevent people by having another 20,000 border guards. And you have to have a court system in place. All this costs billions of dollars, which the Republicans agreed to. And then Donald Trump came in and said, hell no. If you solve the border problem, folks, I'll lose the election because I won't have anything to run on. We can attack people in America, be dumb enough to think that it's Donald Trump great idea when in fact he's sabotaging the process. So all these things considered, I want you to know that you need to look at evidence. Evidence is important.
That's
Now,
such a
let's
great
take our
point,
next call.
Attorney
Go ahead,
Lee.
Councilman.
I was going to mention as one of his policy points, they should have anticipated the attacks regarding, the immigration system and all the attacks regarding that immigrants are taking, jobs from African Americans, and that you've got murders and thieves and terrorists that are coming in, by the droves at the border. And so the one point that should have been made over and over and over again with respect to the immigration issue was just what you stated. There was a bipartisan bill that the former president halted because it would take away a campaign point, right? And so that should have been the point over and over again, clear, concise, to the point, bipartisan bill that I would have signed, but for the former president, period.
One other thing too that was important.
I don't see how Biden's group or team allowed this debate to go on with the rules that they had in place. There's no way he should have participated in a discussion with a known liar, a man who makes up his facts and then give points to it, like Donald Trump. He should have never debated this man without an agreement to fact check what Trump said or says. You know that he lies, so this thing has to be controlled. We can't just put him on the air to continue with his lies and getting away with it. So I don't understand how they didn't put that in check as a condition for the debate. It does appear to be a sabotage of Biden. Because they didn't protect him with that. If he's too sick, don't let him go on. When there's a heavyweight fight and the fighter gets sick, you cancel the fight or you continue to fight to another day. You don't just put them on because you got that date. It's just ridiculous what happened to me.
Okay, let's take the next call. Call, you have a question coming for us today. Hello?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
This is Guy. Glad to hear that you're making those points. And I think that more folks need to do it because obviously we have a situation where if the leader is not able to perform, and obviously that happened in the debate, but he did regain, I guess, some strength, and it looks like he's going to stay in the race at least to the convention. But I think others on the team have got to step up and make those same points that you're making, because we all know when you're looking at any kind of administration, you're really looking at a team effort, and I think that the team has got to step up. So that was just the point I wanted to make. They've got to unmute, so to speak, and we can't really leave it to the parties, the Democrat Party or the Republican Party or whoever. I think that people of goodwill have got to step up and do the same thing that you're doing. So I think it's very important.
Thank you for that. And, in terms of the team, and this is no disrespect to the team at all, but, there is smart, and then there's smart and experienced, right? And so if we were advising the team, Nathaniel and Milton, if we were at Camp David, for 5 days working with the president, this is the strategy that we would have taken that we're articulating on this call, right? So I don't know what the strategy was with respect to those that were in Camp David. They had pictures of like 12 people, many of them senior people as well. So I don't know, but I'm just sharing how I would have approached it. one of the questions that was raised was, quote, was the president incapable of doing any better than he did? You know, so I've been kind of thinking about that question as well. But again, there never would have been a debate if I was part of the team.
Oh.
And I think it's important to remember also that he is the president, and what was he doing immediately? I guess he had a week to prepare or whatever, so they say. But before that, he was doing quite a bit of official business overseas. And for anybody that is in that age category, as people who are in that age category know, you can't do the same things that you used to do back when you were younger that you can do when you're older. But at the same time, you know the old song about when you're older, you say that experience, you're glad you have the experience, but you wish you had that young energy again. And I think that's what we're looking at. So the younger folks have got to step up more, I think.
A good point. And let me explain something too that's a common misconception. One of the things that came up during the debate also dealt with military spending to countries such as Ukraine, Israel, and countries that we support. Here's something folks need to know. The United States doesn't write a check to Ukraine or Israel for $60 billion. What the United States does, and I need you to focus on this, the United States actually supply weapons to these countries, and the weapons are made by American manufacturers. American manufacturers pay top wages to American workers to develop these weapons. So in other words, one of the reasons why our economy is the best in the world now is that we've given so many weapons, and the defense part of our economy is off the chart now. They're making billions of dollars in profit because they're developing weapons, but those are jobs in America. The second misconception, though, that occurred during the debate has to do with tariffs. You know, Trump said that he was imposed tariffs on Chinese goods more than he did before. Folks, tariffs are not paid by China. Tariffs are paid by American consumers. So when you receive a product, like for example, most of your golf equipment is made in China now, like it or not. So when you get golf balls, if they used to cost you $30 a dozen, now they cost you $45 because tariffs, for example, you're paying that, not the Chinese. Chinese still get their $30 and the $15 goes to the United States government. And that's just an example. That's not what the actual rates are, but the point I'm making is tariffs is a tax on American consumers. And so you need to understand that because that's what's going on. So this idea of imposing additional tariffs, that's a new form of regressive tax, in my opinion. So don't let that get part of your discussion, folks.
Attorney Lee, another point, I've been reading that NATO members and other countries around the world, they are incredibly concerned about some of the former presidents' statements regarding NATO. And just this whole conversation about making our relationships transactional, when he kept talking about, you know, making countries pay and not paying enough into NATO. Again, many of our global international partners were quite concerned by some of the statements that were made by the former president during the debate.
Well, the question they were asked was very simple. Would you stay in NATO? Trump refused to answer. When President Biden asked him if he'd stay in NATO, he simply shrugged. So in other words, he's saying indirectly, hell no, the hell with NATO. I'm going to do what I can to help Russia.
Well, didn't he advocate withdrawing from NATO during his presidency?
I don't remember
Absolutely.
exactly what he did. I just know that he showed them great deal of disrespect. I don't remember exactly off the top of my head. I don't know
I
what
believe
He
so.
was he was attacking that they weren't paying their fair share.
Right.
And that was part of it as a threat to that the U.S. would
Could
disband
potentially
NATO if they didn't
withdraw
pay.
from NATO. Right?
But I
the
think
problem that I'm having is that they're confusing sending money versus military assistance. The resources that we're supplying are weapons, as a general rule. We provide guns, bullets, ammunition, bombs, jets. They're all made in America. And so when we supply money to our foreign allies, we are paying American workers. We're paying federal taxes, state taxes. We're providing the financial engine to keep our national economy going. So I want everybody to know that military assistance or money to foreign government is money that is being spent in America. That's very important you understand that. And that's why our economy now is the best in the world. United States economy
Absolutely.
is the best in the world because we've had this expansive military role. And by the way, for the first time in a long time, America is not engaged in any war where we have soldiers out there on the battlefield being killed every day. I think that's a good thing.
Absolutely. And also the fact that we have people that want to get in this country, even though the folks that are ultra conservative poo-poo it, these people are doing a lot of the work that needs to be done in the U.S. So look at the thousands of people that have come in here compared to the unfortunate things that some of the crimes and so forth, and compared to crimes that U.S. citizens do. I think you have to make that comparison. That's what I mean by the people with the energy have to step up and make these points clear.
Well, thank you, caller. Any closing comment, Attorney Banks and Attorney Grimes? We reached the last
to go
couple
out
minutes
and
of our
vote
show today.
come November. It's becoming
Absolutely,
more
it's
important.
important. It's important to vote. And I'm also surprised that the president didn't talk more about Project 2025. That would have been one of my 5 points as well. I'm looking forward to, or not looking forward to, we've got this one big decision that's coming out from the Supreme Court on Monday regarding the immunity of a president, a former president. And so we're going to get that decision. And then we've got several decisions that we didn't have a chance to talk about today, one of which is going to impact many of those cases, those obstruction cases that were filed against several of those individuals that raided the Capitol. And so there's just a lot going on. And so we'll be here next week to continue to unpack those issues.
Well, thank you, callers, for today. And thank you for participating. I think that we have probably one of the most educated set of callers anywhere in the country. So I thank you for your participation and also your research on these important issues that are important to our community, our country, and the world at large. So thank you, everyone. So also, don't forget, if you're in Indianapolis, go downtown to Black Expo today. We have a booth there today. We're giving away a lot of goodies today. So I hope to see you there. Take care, everyone. We'll talk to you next week.
Bye, y'all.
Have a great
Next
afternoon.
week, 4th of July.